are these people?
We found this on Twitter from @Nina Puliano, I think, right? Yeah. And she's citing this courthouse news segment on Christian Smalls. And we've been covering Mr. Smalls here for a minute now. So, we wanted to continue to do so. But Amazon loses bid to keep union hearing secret, right? So the internet behemoth is challenging the results of its warehouse employee elections, blaming its success on unfair tactics by organizers in the National Labor Relations Board. So, they're coming at this particular union. So Brooklyn, Amazon can't shut the police out of a hearing where it will try to overturn its employees' first successful union election in the United States. The Federal Labor Board ruled Thursday, which I think that was last Thursday, pretty sure. The e-commerce and web services giant is pushing back against the history-making vote, which in April formed an independent union at the Staten Island facility known as JFK-8. It accused the National Labor Relations Board, the NLRB, of inappropriately leading the Amazon labor union to victory, and the union itself of coercing and misleading voters. Amazon asked that only the trial team's hearing officer and testifying witness attend the hearing. It would be virtually impossible to ensure the proper sequestration of witnesses unless access is limited, the company argued in motion. The Labor Board noted its long-standing policy of public access while denying the bid. The board hearings are not secret, reads the 3-page order penned Corneli Overstreet, regional director of the NLRB's office in Phoenix, Arizona. Accordingly, preventing the public from viewing its important process is not an option. Led by workers who were fired after protesting inadequate COVID-19 protections in the early days of the pandemic, the union grabbed headlines with warehouse workers, a collective David standing up to a Goliath with $1 trillion market cap. All the more reason to keep it in the public eye, the board reasoned. That this case has garnered national and international attention from outside parties only further solidifies the importance of allowing public observation, as employees and members of the public can be better informed of the purposes and policies of the act. Amazon labor union attorney Eric Milner celebrated the decision. Amazon wanted to conduct a secret hearing so no one could hear how ridiculous their objections were, Milner told Courthouse News via email. The workers that participated in the election deserve transparency. Amazon did not immediately return a request for comment. About 55% of voters supported the union at the Staten Island facility. The hard-earned win followed a year of building bonds, organizers said, including helping fired workers pay their bills and hosting 20-something employee barbecues. Despite the win at the JFK-8 facility, a union election at another Staten Island facility known as LDJ5 came up short. Organizers blamed the outcome on Amazon stepping up its anti-union efforts. In its objection to the successful election, Amazon argued that the labor board's most glaring transgression was its filing of a federal lawsuit a week before the election, accusing the company of unfairly firing Gerald Bryson, an employee who was fired after attending a protest against lagging pandemic protocols that proceeded in ongoing, but in the meantime, an administrative law judge has ordered Amazon to reinstate Bryson. So, also, let go post-protest was Christian Smalls, a former employee who is now president of the ALU. Internal messages show that an Amazon human resources employee had multiple concerns about firing Smalls, including that Smalls had a right to attend the peaceful, socially distanced protest, and that his termination is going to be perceived as retaliation. So, Collin, I know you sent this to me, I'm pretty sure. That
shout out to Franco, I believe, who tweeted this out over the weekend. And then, I knew you were doing the story, so I sent this to you.
Yes. So, and this is kind of continuation of these practices. So, fired Cleveland area Amazon worker speaks out, says union effort led to dismissal, right? And this is from Cleveland.com, Sean McDonald. North Randall, Ohio, a former Amazon worker who's trying to unionize his workplace is speaking out after being fired from his fulfillment center in North Randall and filed a complaint now being investigated by the NLRB Joey Desatnik started working at the CLE2 fulfillment center just southeast of Cleveland in August 2020, but didn't start trying to organize a union until the end of March. Desatnik said he wasn't subtle, openly talked about it on breaks, and even standing outside the building on his off time, getting a list of about 230 other workers interested in unionizing. When I started this, I just went full swing at it, Desatnik said. We should not have to do this in the dark. Desatnik was let go on April 19th, officially for a security infraction. He said he was told and being dismissed. He believes he was actually fired for leading a union effort. Amazon, however, disputes Desatnik's take on what happened, saying Desatnik's union aspirations did not factor into his firing. The facts of this termination are clear and completely unrelated to whether Mr. Desatnik supports any particular cause or group, Amazon spokesperson Kelly Nantle said in an emailed statement in response to questions from Cleveland.com. Safety at our sites is a top priority, and after a detailed investigation, we determined that he intentionally avoided standard security screening to the point of getting aggressive with security personnel. This behavior, in addition to the blatant security violations, is not tolerated in our facilities, and the appropriate steps were taken on behalf of all employees at CLE2. So,
you know what? Just very quick. This sounds very reminiscent to what happened to Chris Smalls. Like,
yes,
almost the exact same language. Like,
yep,
he was considered like he wanted to unionize, so he was kind of determined as
a security risk.
As a security risk.
Mm-hmm.
Same exact thing.
Union worker says Amazon used vague security issue to get rid of him. Desatnik filed an unfair labor practice charge against Amazon on May 16th. If Amazon is found in the wrong, the company could have to reinstate Desatnik with back pay, share information about the case to other workers, and post notices reminding workers of their organizing rights. Desatnik is one of about 2,500 employees at the North Randall facility. The 885,000 square foot fulfillment center opened in September 2018 on the site of the old Randall Park Mall. It was one of several fulfillment centers now in Northeast Ohio. Soon, after he started talking about unionizing, Desatnik said he was warned by coworkers that supervisors were watching him closely. On April 8th, Desatnik said a supervisor wouldn't give him ice for his knee. When he complained, he was suspended for his attitude, but he was called back to work the next day, he said. And this is Desatnik himself. Yeah. A week or so later, he was told he was being fired for a security infraction earlier in the month, Desatnik said. Desatnik said workers have to walk through multiple metal detectors and occasionally go through further screening by security guards when leaving the building. He said his manager said in firing him over the phone that he didn't comply with security, although he said he doesn't remember doing anything differently. Desatnik said he believes the real reason for his firing, but he was outspoken about his want to unionize the fulfillment center. It isn't the first time the company has been accused of firing workers involved in a union effort. For example, 2 workers helped unionize a warehouse in Staten Island. Right. And another worker who led the protest in the company in 2020 was reinstated after he fired an unfair labor charge. The NLRB is still investigating Desatnik's complaint. If an investigator thinks a complaint has merit, several things can happen. An investigator can take a complaint to a hearing where an administrative law judge can dismiss a complaint or force a company to cease and desist. In the case of a firing, a company could have to reinstate a worker and pay lost wages. They could also have to post a notice to all employees in a break room or over email telling them the company actually unlawfully and reminding workers of their rights. The company acted unlawfully. Before that happens, investigators can get an injunction from a federal court, or a worker and a company can reach a settlement. More than 90% of meritorious unfair labor practice cases are settled by agreement at some point in the process, according to the NLRB. So Desatnik said this is why he wants to unionize Amazon. He told Cleveland.com he was once proud to work at the Amazon facility. He had won an All-Star Award and became a trainer. But when pandemic-related restrictions started getting lifted, rules at the facility started getting stricter. Desatnik said managers from his part of the fulfillment center were moved somewhere else, and new management came in. Desatnik said supervisors were using their computers and write-ups as a modern-day whip. He said the write-ups were used to speed workers or to get rid of them. Amazon has been accused in the past of not wanting employees to be around long-term. You're now a detriment the longer you're there, Desatnik said. They'd rather fire you and hire someone coming in making less than you. He
Yep.
said that the company also treats workers differently if they have an injury. Desatnik said he had to fight with Amazon and get a doctor's note in order to get accommodation for a knee injury. Even after getting a letter from the medical professional, he said the company treated him differently. The first facility to successfully unionize was in Staten Island under the ALU, which isn't connected to any national unions, which is good. Desatnik has traveled to Staten Island to support the ALU, but said he's working with a larger union to organize the CLE2 center. He said he's waiting to announce which union until it's further along in the process. The North Shore AFL-CIO has already pledged to support the effort. Of course they do. Desatnik said he's still working towards forming a union despite his firing. They didn't get rid of me, Desatnik said. All they did was make the fire even stronger inside of me. So, Collin, thoughts so far?
I mean, one, shout out to this guy. Two, it's very interesting that his story, unlike Smalls, has been completely ignored.
Yeah.
And I would argue in some ways he's gotten a lot worse treatment than Smalls did.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes me, and I hate thinking this way, but it kind of makes me suspect as to how is it that Chris Smalls is getting all this royal treatment in the media,
yes,
and this guy hasn't.
I mean, I also would like to point out I would avoid anything with the AFL-CIO myself personally. Forming a union, there's plenty of questions with that organization about how strong they are for unions, and if they, are even a benefit and not a detriment. So
right, but I think even in that, like DeSantis traveled to Staten Island. So why is something like this from Chris not mentioned? Well, at least to my knowledge, especially given this story. Especially like this is almost verbatim what happened to him. So, there should be more of a reason, like for Chris and like the ALU to really highlight. It's like this is what's happening at these warehouses, and they're doing it again with this guy. So just kind of along with that, Chris, I think more likely now has, like we've kind of reached out to him in this space. I know others in this space have reached out to him as of late. As far as I know, he has yet to kind of respond back to any of our, requests or anyone's requests right now to come on any of our channels right now. But like the fact that Chris has a lot more power now, or at least has a lot more say so in what happens, especially now that people in the media have been giving him a lot of attention, hasn't said any of this at all. So, it's just kind of makes me suspect as to what makes Chris special over this guy for both of them going through similar shit. And, and yet this guy is being completely ignored, and Chris literally is getting the royal treatment. Yeah.
Well, and he seems, like the liberal hopeful, to some degree. So,
right.
This is the, he was at recently, this was June 9th, right? So this is around the same time this guy was getting fired, right? This is kind of like meanwhile, right? You have Christian Smalls, like bumping elbows with the like the highfalutin for the most part. And he went to this Time 100 gala, and they've gotten him stuck on this like union drip stuff, right? And I don't know if he's getting who's pushing that department as far as promotion for him or whatever, but I don't think the optics are very good.
No.
So, and here he is with, Questlove, Dwayne Wade, right? John Batiste, right? You know, and we've been saying this kind of since like he did that thing with Gucci not
Hmm.
that long ago, and we did a whole
Yeah.
thing talking about his connection there. Um, you know, and we've been worried, and I'm kind of past worried and think it's actual that he's been co-opted. You
Yeah.
know, that to some degree, whether it's through you know, um, fame here or whatever, but I just wanted people to show people that we're not the only ones seeing this, right? And I just picked a couple of random tweets from this thread. Um, so enough here, which is at no really y'all, the double Y's there. Please do not let these people use you. They are pros. They play for keeps. I'm scared for you. Billionaires suck. Hashtag Medicare for all at real underscore Anna Bird. This is how movements are co-opted, then regulated to history. Very sad indeed. Joshua Queen at Joshua Neal Queen. You accomplish more for working folks than these clowns ever pretended or tried to do. Without their help, none of these losers show up for us. Don't fall for their glam shit. Too bad. At Questlove recently crossed a picket line for a party. Hope y'all don't lose the plot. So, I mean, I definitely see some other people getting this. At Brittany the Whole, Thole, one of those. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of the way we've been feeling for a minute now.
Right.
So,
And yeah, people were kind of like, oh, like,
right.
he's trying to do his best or whatever else. But yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, but what advice is he going to get from Zendaya as far as organizing?
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't consider, I don't know Zendaya to do any of that kind of shit.
Right.
So, or even care, so it's just the idea of like, just being able to use the fame. I think in his mind, it's like, oh, if I get enough fame and then I can kind of mention my story or my message, then people will listen to me and then things will get done. I think in his mind. But, and I shared this, last week, like with Ronald Reagan, like they don't like the elite do not like this, you know, like, and this is kind of why I kind of say, the idea of having like an education that talks about revolution
Yeah.
is not going to happen in this country,
Yeah.
like look what happened, again, I always suggest for people to go back and watch that clip where I talk about Ronald Reagan, like he
Mm-hmm.
kind of, like called out college students,
Yeah.
especially during the Vietnam War because and like the civil rights movement, he basically called them out for being like scum,
Yeah.
because they were actually trying to very much anti-establishment. So
Yeah.
as a result of that, he defunded schools, as a way to kind of break them down and for schools not to kind of promote any, like direct action.
Yeah.
So like, and I wish that was the kind of history slash learning that is being taught in school, because then Chris would know better that this is the ploy of the establishment to
Yeah.
really rig him. And it's very easy to do it, given that I don't know his history, but I guess, working middle class, you're not making a whole lot. It's very easy to kind of take people like with nice clothes, hang out with a couple celebrities, eat a couple
Yeah.
nice meals. Now I hear like he is in talks of writing a memoir.
Well, I've got that queued up. So,
All right.
Friend of the show Franco had this to say: if time, Biden and other elites are accepting you into your circle, they are not afraid of you. This isn't accomplishing anything for working class people. I couldn't agree more there, Frank. Um, I know you and you had Shadowban talk about his last visit to the White House. where you talked about how bad the PRO Act, which he was calling for, you know, is actually a detriment to the ALU, and if enacted, would have meant that the ALU wouldn't have existed because it's not partnered with the AFL-CIO. So, you know, but people should go check that stream out from Frank and them. But, you know, I've been seeing this a lot on Twitter, right? Where this is at Ibarra11, who's friends with some friends of ours. Sorry, but I don't know how to see this photo in a positive light. You know, so yeah, I mean, I can't either. Can you think of other than like the basic promotion of this?
No,
Right, which
I
like
mean,
doesn't even it doesn't even promote anything that you're like. It promotes you essentially.
yeah, I'm seeing Born Center Cold World in the chat, and
Yeah,
they're saying I can't say for sure that co-opted, but I don't know any poor unemployed person who has new brand name clothes and sneakers every time you see them. From
yeah,
tax to rich to posing with them is giving me AOC teeth. Exactly.
yes, very much so. And we've made the direct correlation in previous, you know, videos
Rings. Yeah.
of how it's very similar to AOC. But yeah, I do believe so. The whole dripped out thing. I think it's just, you know, having the nice threads and whatever, but I noticed some people were not necessarily happy with these thoughts, as we tend to run into when we've said these things too. Can the Hammer and Sickle crew occasionally please chill the fuck out? I'm sorry, how about no? You know? How about no? And I'm not even part of the Hammer and Sickle crew, but like,
Right.
you know, like, no. And again, I don't trust anyone who betrays Chris Smalls like this. They're already like, what? You cannot put him on this gigantic pedestal that you have like set him upon. Like,
Right.
he is one person that can make mistakes and probably has tons of handlers and whatever that can make mistakes. And again, you know, if I could speak to you, Mr. Smalls, I feel like whoever's telling you to do these things, get them away from you. Like, they are not your friends.
Right.
You know? So, you know, well, at the same time, you're supposedly not working, right? Like, you know.
But I think that's the gag, is the
Yes.
idea, because he's unemployed, then it's like, oh, you know, we'll give him money, we'll give him clothes, and like he'll be
Right.
good, and
Do you
like
think he got
he'll do
paid for
whatever
this
they say.
appearance?
You know, so I
Like,
think that's just it. It's like, because he's unemployed, that is like
it's
he's
even
is
more
going to get
right.
very easily snatched up.
Do you think
Like,
he's paid for these appearances? Like,
I'm
for
sure
that
he
specific
is.
one, the
I'm
time
sure
one and
he is.
whatever?
I'm sure
Okay.
he is. He has to be,
Yeah.
you know, or at least he's getting free shit out of it,
Yes.
you know? So
Yeah.
but again, it's like, I think in this day and age, you don't have to do a whole lot, really. Like, you can just give people like some nice clothes, or like exposure to shit, or just the idea of,
Yes.
or just the opportunity to just stand next to a celebrity, and people will do it.
Yeah.
So like, I think the standards, I think in this case, especially in this day and age, are just so low that, you know, that, yeah, people would be willing. But yeah, you just made me think of that in terms of, he's unemployed. So
Yes.
it'll be a lot easier to get him versus like someone
If he
who
had
is
his
employed
job,
from
right.
wealth,
Yeah.
that may not necessarily need it or care.
Mm-hmm. So, we'll continue with a bit of this tomfoolery. We know this guy. He's tomfoolery incarnate at this point. But and with his connection to the Breaking Points network, which we'll get into in a bit, you know, which we haven't even done our full segment on him yet, which that's going to be, you'll want to see that. That's going to be fun. But
Coming, yeah.
he you know, went out and talked to I think he had Tina Desiree go out, in fact. Where they were in Phoenix, right? Where he was there for like 5 minutes to give a talk and then left, But it does make odd bedfellows when you find this happening. Him hanging out with hello nobody. So and they started this hashtag hot labor summer. Like like oh God. Just could you just not? Anyway, like this to me is more like, especially with people who definitely know that she's a disappointment, for the ones who thinks this person is a disappointment, when you gonna say that this person's a disappointment? I mean, I'm waiting. But because she thinks we're gonna be all right, Collin. I don't know if you remember that, but I don't think we're gonna be all right. I don't know about you. And especially when you're meeting with the AFL-CIO, like.
But you know what? Here's the thing. I wouldn't necessarily mind all of this. I wouldn't mind if, and I've said it in past streams and I'll say it again. I wouldn't mind if he met with, like in this case, like AOC or Bernie or even Nina Turner or anything like that.
Yes.
Like I wouldn't necessarily mind that if he brought demands.
Right.
Like, would you be willing to do this direct action or whatever else with me and continue to do that until, such and such, Like if he was doing all of that, that would be one thing. Yeah, go ahead and meet them. But don't go and meet them just for the photo up to say that you met with them, especially these folks and the guys are saying like, I'm for the labor, I'm for pro-worker and all this kind of bullshit. And yet, these are the same people who have not, come to any, they weren't at the marches for Medicare for All last year. It's definitely not going to attend, this year, that will be in DC next month. So don't put up the facade that you care when this is all for your career.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I just feel like Chris, again, whether you call it naive or he's just an idiot, like I want to go with the idea he's probably just naive, because I feel
wish
like
I could say that.
Well, I'm saying that because again, like we don't have the people in our lives right now. Like the boomers honestly should know better because they went through this shit and now they're like kind of like, oh, we got ours, so fuck the rest of y'all.
Do you know who Osho is? You heard that name?
Osho?
You watched Wild Wild Country?
No.
On Netflix. Okay, it's a documentary about a particular guru, right? Who was very popular in like the late 80s, early 90s, right? He I think he started Scream Therapy, honestly. Was one of the big proponents of that too, but anyway, he was very well known for being a prosperity guru, right?
Right.
Where like he was like, oh, having these 8 Rolls Royces is fine. It doesn't mean I'm a bad person and trying to like steal everyone's money, like we're allowed to enjoy the nice things in life. Like that's essentially the thought process, right? And I think that's very much what Chris must be thinking. They're like, why shouldn't I, like get this paper if I'm doing something like this,
Right. And I mean, I get that, but at the same time, it's like, if you're going to get all of that, what is the turnaround for the rest of us? What's going to be the turnaround for like all of the workers who you say you're trying to help? What do they get? They're still suffering and working in those factories while you're hobnobbing with these celebrities. Are you thinking about them?
Right. When I was like, you may think this is a great idea, and someone told you to ask for the PRO Act, right, in Congress, Hashtag ProAct here from the North Shore AFL-CIO over in Cleveland, right? And is pretty much the AFL-CIO love the ProAct because it essentially makes it to where no unions can exist unless connected to the AFL-CIO. Like,
Right.
so therefore your union wouldn't exist. Like, you can't get more blunt than that. So, you know, shout out Franco and Shadowban and stuff who pointed that out. I know Shadowban's worked with the AFL-CIO directly and knows their ways and means. So he's not a fan.